Actually, it's in the command center is when they do that, not HR.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Ken, how are you? Hi, Ken.
Mr. Haas. Wow.
Nice to see you, Ken.
Nice to see you. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is not the best chair in the world to sit in.
None of them are.
They are uncomfortable. Question for you. Did you still want to pull D? Did you still want to pull D?
Yes.
Anything else?
A.
A has already been pulled.
Fantastic. All right.
A and D.
A and D.
Okay.
Do you have the link? Are you good to get
I have the link. Oh, I think my Wi-Fi is just.
Okay, great. Perfect. And then just keep your camera off. It's up to you. They'll get you on camera from KBED. And then keep muted and keep your sound off so it doesn't interfere with the microphone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Fantastic. Thank you.
The Wi-Fi is not letting me actually connect to any so far. I'm on the Wi-Fi, but it's not.
Try talking on yours.
It's good. Hello, hello, hello. But I'm not ever talking on mine. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to figure out why it's not switching.
It's switched, no? That's it.
No, I just pinned it.
Oh. Oh, well then let's do gallery view. There's no. I know, but there isn't a code that's actually on there. That's what I'm saying. Like all of these people, I need to understand the code. Oh, really?
Can you let them know that whenever they're ready, I'm ready? Whenever you guys are ready, we're ready.
Good job. Okay. Good job.
Okay. You mean they want to see me? Yeah, they're trying to see you. It's okay if they don't see me.
Is everyone ready?
I believe we are. Eli, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening and welcome to the Beverly Hills Unified School District Board of Education meeting. It is 5:05 and it is August 10th. I want to welcome everybody, and with that I would like at this point to ask Mr. David D'Amico if he would please lead us in the flag salute.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. Okay. Can I motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. And Mr. Margot is the second. Mrs. Walker-Schuman is the first. Call for the motion. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
I don't think I'm heard.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes, so passes 6-0. Dr. Breggy, can we have a report of the closed session, please?
Sure. The board has voted 5-0 in favor of approving the settlement agreement for case 19-SM-CV 01075. And the board has voted 5-0 in favor of approving the mutual release agreement between BHUSD and TCDS in regards to case 19-SMC V01075.
Thank you. Okay, the public comment, I see that we have 3 people who would like to read, I believe. Rivka Wolchin.
Hello?
Thank you.
Am I supposed to start?
You're on, Mrs.
Okay. Dear Dr. Brady and the Beverly Hills School Board of Trustees, this letter is long and I'm going to just point out some significant points. The current mandated mask policy violates medical and legal rights. Masks are medical devices covered by Health and Safety Code 1099-20, and the combination of masks upon the person along with contact tracing and health screenings constitutes medical experiments that require informed consent under the law. California Education Code 49005.8 prohibits the use of a physical restraint technique that obstructs a pupil's respiratory airways or impairs the pupil's breathing or respiratory capacity, or a behavioral restraint technique that restricts breathing, including but not limited to using a pillow, blanket, carpet mat, or other item to cover a pupil's face. It is illegal to mandate EUA-approved investigational medical therapies without informed consent. Furthermore, the requiring of children to wear a mask, such as the one pictured in the letter that you have, you are promoting the idea that the mask can prevent or treat a disease, which is an illegal deceptive practice. It is unlawful to advertise that a product or service can prevent disease unless you possess competent and reliable scientific evidence substantiating that the claims are true. The writing on the box clearly states, will not provide any protection against COVID-19, coronavirus, or other viruses or contaminants. User is solely responsible for the selection, single use only. Requiring children to wear a mask sets the stage for contracting any infection, including COVID-19, and making the consequences of that infection much graver. In essence, a mask may very well put children at an increased risk of infection, and if so, having a far worse outcome, not only causing harm to the children, but imposing significant liability on the district. Wearing face masks comes with a host of physiological and psychological burdens which can interfere with task performance and reduce work efficiency. Studies of simple surgical masks found significant reduction in blood oxygen. Furthermore, the mandatory mouth mask in schools is a major threat to a child's development. It ignores the essential needs of a growing child. The well-being of children and young people is highly dependent on the emotional connection with others. Masks create a threatening and unsafe environment where emotional connections become difficult. This letter serves as an official notice that our children, who will be listed below, do not consent to being forced to wear a mask, be subjected to a thermal scan, or to fill out the health screen questionnaire on parents' wear, which is against the HIPAA laws. We remind you that the default position in normal American society is to be free from masks and breathe fresh air. Compulsory masking will entail the effective muzzling of both healthy and unhealthy students. Masks prevent personal, individual facial expressions and intimacy. It is a person's choice whether to voluntarily give up his or her protected right of expression. It cannot be mandated under any law. Accordingly, we request the immediate compliance with federal and state law and demand that you advise the students and their parents and guardians of the following: that there will be an optional mask policy, and that testing, health screenings like thermal scans and parents' wear questionnaires will require informed consent. And on top of it all, no discrimination or retaliatory disciplinary action will be made. In response to this letter, if not any response...
Thank you. Thank you. That's been 3 minutes, Mrs. Wolchin. I have to thank you for your comment. It's been 3 minutes, and I appreciate your comments, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Marit Neiman. This is Marit Neiman.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can, Marit.
Thank you. Good afternoon, dear Superintendent Michael Breggy, and to the school board. I appreciate your time and attention. As some of you know, I am the mother of 2 children currently enrolled in the Beverly Hills High School. And although all of you know, parts of 2 consecutive school years have been marred by COVID restrictions, I believe it is critical for the mental well-being of our children that a 3rd year not contain pointless regulation pertaining to a virus that does not affect children in any significant manner. Earlier this month, the CDC recommended that school districts across the country mandate unvaccinated children to continue to wear masks and socially distance themselves from other children. Our school is mandating masks, but it seems the writing is on the wall that vaccines may soon be mandated as well. Evidence proves that children are exponentially more likely to be killed from taking the vaccines or suffer from debilitating conditions like myocarditis than they are to suffer negative health effects from COVID. I have not seen a single study that would convince me that COVID is more of a threat to our children than these vaccines, which by admission of the government has killed more people than any vaccines combined over the past 2 decades. By mandating any of these medical decisions, the school board is relegating our children to second-class status, allowing for families exercising the right to make their own health decisions to be othered. Not only does this violate personal HIPAA protections, children deserve normalcy. And adults all over this country, even in our own city, have failed to provide that for them. In Florida, masks have been shown to preserve bacteria much more effectively than they are able to prevent the intrusion of a virus. We're asking you to be the leaders your position demands you to be. Analyze actual information from reliable sources about the psychological effect of masks on children, their mental health, and the bacteria they are inhaling from the dirtiest places on their body. And reject the pressure to conform ideologically driven expectations from other school boards or any agencies and do right by our children. Thank you. I appreciate the time. If anyone wants more material about this, I'm very happy to send it to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ethan Behrman. Is Ethan?
Let him know he's on mute.
Ethan?
Thank you. Thank you, honorable board members and Superintendent Breggy. Notwithstanding previous comments, COVID-19 has introduced our generations to the real death and suffering from a global pandemic. Millions dead around the world. It continues to mutate, killing and harming millions of people across the world, including right here in Los Angeles County. Even now, the new Delta and Delta Plus variants are spreading, causing a rise in hospitalizations right here in LA County for 1,433 people. Number not seen since March. I think we can all agree the safety of our children while receiving a quality education is paramount. So I, of course, received the email from the superintendent with the new plan. After reading the plan, I was actually shocked and dismayed at the callous disregard for student safety, considering the currently known facts and data around COVID-19. The plan is loose with recommendations, holds nobody accountable for their actions, is woefully inadequate regarding communications, fails to provide parents and students with viable alternatives in light of this tragedy in waiting plan, which of course adds liability. The board needs to immediately modify the plan with the following. Vaccination of employees and contractors by October 1st, 2021. The DOJ has actually just released a letter authorizing that. Enforce mask wearing at all times in closed spaces, such as the classrooms, libraries, offices, etc. Enforce COVID-19 PCR testing of all employees and students free of charge, minimum of 1 time per week, like LAUSD. Enforce quarantine according to state guidelines for anyone who tests positive, regardless of vaccination status. Provide a concurrent Zoom stream of all classes for those in quarantine and those who choose not to risk in-person learning. Also notify the guardians of all students in the classes where a student has tested positive. Additionally, notify any guardian of a student who shares a desk with a COVID-19 positive student, such as in subsequent classes. Enforcement is critical for safety and reducing liability. As I read the plan, I did not see enforcement. Enforcement around public health measures is how you improve chances for positive outcomes. And regarding the laws, the founding At the founding of the United States of America, smallpox outbreaks were a common deadly problem. The founding fathers understood the public health risk of not taking strong action, passed an act relative to quarantine in 1796, allowing the use of federal officers to aid in enforcing quarantines and health laws of the states. In the early 20th century, smallpox outbreaks continued. Massachusetts enacted penalties to assist in enforcing mandatory vaccinations for everyone. Mr. Jacobson, in that case, took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court in 1905. The court ruled that the law did not violate the rights of Mr. Jacobson, that the law was a legitimate exercise of police powers to protect public health and safety of its citizens. Importantly, Jacobson v. Massachusetts is still the controlling law on the topic of things like mandatory vaccinations and public health. I will submit a formal paper to you soon. Thank you for taking a stronger approach to our children's safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bierman. Okay. Moving right along, I have a motion that the consent calendar, but we're removing 8A,
Yes.
8 and D,
I have the other ones too. So
8L, and, okay, go ahead, Mr. Marco.
All right, I will move to approve the consent calendar minus 8A, including 8A1 and 8A2, 8D, 8L, and 8N.
I'll second.
Who's that, Mrs. Wells? Thank you very much. Okay, motion moved to the consent calendar minus 8A1, 8L, 8N, and 8D. Call for the question on the consent calendar. Beg pardon?
I said 8A2 as well.
Oh, 8A2, thank you. Okay, call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Schumann?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so it passes 6-0. Okay? Okay, who would like to make a motion to approve the regular board meeting, item 8A1?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion moved by Mrs. Marcus, seconded by Mrs. Walker-Schumann. Can we have whoever brought this up to speak to it?
That was me.
Thank you.
It's just a small thing, but I really feel like just for consistency's sake, in the minutes, it states under 8R, ratification of purchase order number 2 for 2021-2022. It says in the minutes, Mrs. Marcus wanted to go on record to state the PO. I won't say the number. Boardroom chair purchase. Culver Newland Inc. for $3,865 is for more than one chair. It's for 24 chairs. And just to be consistent with what we had discussed prior, to not include these things into the minutes. So I'd like to remove that.
Okay. Do you wish to amend the motion or just to make a comment?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Okay, the friendly amendment. Do you want to state the amendment?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to 8A1, approval of board meeting minutes for number 8R, ratification of purchase order number 2 for 2021-2022, to remove the comments under the minutes.
Okay.
We have discussion. I have a question about this.
Well, I moved for the motion. Mary seconded.
Discussion.
No, we're gonna
Right, but
we're gonna have
She
discussion.
moved to amend it, so who had the original second?
I moved it. Mrs. Wells seconded.
No, who
Oh, who made the original
I
motion?
did this second.
I
did the
moved.
second, so do you accept the friendly amendment?
I accept the friendly amendment. but
Okay,
if-
then you can have discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay.
I guess this question really would be for Pam because she's kind of our protocol guru. My understanding is that we don't explain votes, but if there is a comment made that's asked to be entered into the record, that is reflected. Is that
Yeah, so, and Pam's on the line as well, she can jump in, but the purpose of minutes is to record the board's actions and not individual statements, so, there have been times, I know in the past where people have wanted to go on record for things, and so to be consistent, and Ms. Crossart and I had a conversation about that, no one's, trying to, sit back and create their own minutes. We'll make sure that they're action items only, because that is what the purpose is. And Ms. Crossart, if you want to say anything since you take the minutes.
No, I'm happy to remove that comment.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So do we have to, we can call for the motion then, because there was,
She accepted the amendment, so.
yeah,
Well, you both did.
Call for the vote.
I will. Okay, thank you. All right. Call for the motion. Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Mrs., Dr. Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Margot,
Yes.
Mrs. Wells,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman,
Yes.
and Mrs. Marcus is a yes. Okay, I will move for the motion to approve by item 8A2, special board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. That was moved by Mrs. Marcus, seconded by, call for discussion or questions and whatever.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so these are the meeting minutes for the special board meeting that was held just the other day on August 2nd. And my question about them, or my comment, was in the attendance, it's marked that I was absent. And I just want to say that while I was not in attendance, I feel absent is a tad bit misleading, because I was not notified of the meeting nor sent the Zoom link, so I had no ability to attend. So I was wondering if there was any other wording that could be used to mark my absence, and if there isn't, then I would just like to state that the reason why I was not present was because I was not told, nor did I have the means to attend.
We can look into that, I believe, Mr. Raymer, and I appreciate your thoughts on that, and I think it's a very good point.
We still have to notify something because there's no vote recorded for you, so something has to be on the record to reflect that you weren't there to vote. So I don't know what a better word is.
Just so you know, it's just an automatic wording on our minutes. I don't write the word absent. It's already incorporated in our template, so I can't really change that word.
All right, I understand, but I just wanted to get it out
Well,
there.
if we know in advance from now on, we can say something like Mr. Raymer's not here for whatever reason. I mean, if it's possible, if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we could, even if we can't change the word absent, maybe next to his name, because you do fill in the name, right, Pam?
It's all automatic.
Oh, it's automatic. Okay.
Attendance, it's just you check it off. So I don't.
Got it. Okay.
We just have to make sure that that type of oversight doesn't happen again, perhaps.
This is a unique.
We can always put it in the minutes, which we do. Like sometimes if someone's out of town or they attend virtually, we will write it. I'll write it in the minutes. So in the future, we can do that.
Thank you.
I just want to say that it's unique that we have a closed session and then come to open to report out in one item. And so the difficulty that we have in that situation is we don't know how long that will go, but I understand what you're saying. And so in the future, we could be in a waiting room, and it's sometimes an hour, sometimes it's 2 hours. We never know when it's in that order, but it's not something that happens too terribly often, but we will be mindful of that, Mr. Raymer.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, I'll call for the motion then. All those in favor, 8A, Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
And Ms. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes. That passes 6-0.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the ratification of the agreement with Astro Painting Company for interior painting at the high school.
I'll second.
Okay, it was moved by Mr. Margot, seconded by Mrs. Walker-Schuman, I believe I heard. Discussion, questions, comments?
Did you want to start, Eli? Because I had something on this.
Sure. I actually have a sizable chunk of questions if you would like to start, if yours is shorter.
Ken, are you addressing this one? Yes. Okay. You might want to come up. Thanks. I had inquired about this because I first was making sure that we had a bid process, which I was informed we did, and this was the lowest bid. It seemed for the scope of work, though, that I mean, I would hate to see the other bids because this one seemed rather high. So I'm curious as to what are the reasons in this particular venue why this price is so high for the scope of work, because I've painted 3 times as much for this price, if not more.
Well, thank you for the questions. I appreciate that. And there is a tremendous amount of work in that room. As of today, there's 26 labor days just in the robotic shop of painting, plus $1,700 worth of materials as of today. Tomorrow, they'll be finishing up the classroom portion of it. There's a tremendous amount of work in surface preparation. There's a lot of angles. It's a very high room. We painted everything from the top of the ceiling all the way down. There's multiple different types of materials, metals, porous materials, lots of patching, tremendous amount of work. There was a lot of cabinetry work in there. Cabinetry work is always very intensive as far as labor because there's a lot of hinges and hardware to mask and remove, so that some locks and things you mask around, other things you remove, so like handles and things like that. And then you have to sand it. Which takes a lot of time. Every nook and cranny has to be sanded, then everything has to be made to be perfectly clean. And then you apply a coat of primer. You do a detail on it to make sure you're not missing any kind of defects. And then you apply a spot priming and then 2 coats of finish. So it's a very labor-intensive process.
I don't doubt that, Ken. And the reason I brought it up is I just got finished painting an interior of a house that's about a 4,800 square foot house, and that was around 10. So that's what it made me feel, at least ask, like, how do we get that high? But you've shed a little bit of light on it on this one. It's just, I mean, maybe the nature of, once again, public contracts are just different than private residential.
Well, when we get into the prevailing wage, that also really hits us too.
Gotcha.
So we're talking about people that are, general laborers. In a lot of cases, companies are charging up to $100 an hour for them.
Yeah, that's
where we used to be able to get like 2 workers in a truck on a site for about $1,500. Now you're closer to $3,000 or $4,000 because each person, generally with prevailing wage, when we do our scientific wild guesses on prices sometimes before we take bids just to get for budgeting purposes, we'll see very high pricing feedback come back from the contractors because of the prevailing wage and all the overhead associated with it. It's tremendous.
Okay, I appreciate the responses. Thank you,
It's
Ken.
really tremendous.
I would just, I had a question on that, and on a couple of the same items, but the same issue, not that issue, about the fact that this is the room that we heard so much about several months ago, the robotics room, the woodworking room, and it will be finished the day school starts. I hope that the kids will be able to use it. So that was my question. To see this on the calendar so late, that I wondered if it will be done in time for the opening of school.
The robotics suite will not be 100% complete. However, it will be occupiable on the first day of school. I spent about 3, almost 4 hours with Mr. Castle today. We did the final setting of positions for all the equipment. My electrician is in there right now as we speak tonight, connecting those devices. So by tomorrow, by the end of the day, we'll be able to hit a button and all those machines will run. What we are missing is some of the tables and countertops, which have been ordered. They're just on back order. I've ordered them a couple months ago. I would not have imagined that the things that we ordered would have taken more than a couple months, but we have supply issues. According to speaking to Mr. Castle, I asked him what would be our best solution for getting kids functional on that Friday, and we talked about temporary fold-out tables for them to be able to put their stuff on. So they'll have a completely ready classroom so they can do their planning and curriculum. And then in the shop area, they'll have temporary tables where they can begin to do their work. But from what I understood today from Mr. Castle, they won't start actually working with tools for 2 to 3 weeks. And that also gives him time because we're working with another gentleman named Tom Vasella. He's one of the consultants that helped do the design, and they're helping to put together the training regimen for each piece of equipment. So that's where we are. So come Friday morning, there'll be kids occupying that seat. In fact, he and I were talking about how we're going to accommodate 70 kids in there and split the periods. And it was a very detailed half a day we spent together today, and that was what I would say kind of the last steps to getting everything dialed in.
Well, I'm glad to hear there's so many kids that are taking that. Tremendous.
It's a popular program. It's going to get more popular too.
Okay. Anybody else questions, Mr. Raymer?
Thank you for asking that, Mrs. Marcus. That was one of my questions as well. Specifically, I'm very curious about the preparation of the wood shop because I'm the vice president of the robotics team this year, so it's definitely a critical space for our program. So I'm happy to hear how much time you've been spending on it, as well as bringing in Mr. Castle just to get the specifics of the class, and I can confirm that we will most likely not be using it for the first couple of weeks, as we will be doing safety training outside before we even bring any of the new students in. So that all works fantastically. Some questions that I had is, has this work that we're approving today already begun, or will that start after we've approved it? And will that cause the woodshop to be closed for a certain amount of time during the start of school, or will this work be able to be completed before school starts?
Are we talking about the astro painting portion?
Yes.
The astro painting will be done tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic.
They're actually done in the shop portion. They're just finishing the last coats in the classroom area.
Okay, that's great to hear. Is the money for this project coming from the initial funds set aside for the robotics lab, or is this an extra fund that we're allowing?
It's coming from the original budget. We're going to save quite a bit of money on the original budget. We've used a lot of in-house staff for things like the electrical and other things that we could do. And my team's been really great to assist with that, saving us a lot of money. It'll leave capacity in the budget to buy a couple of the really expensive pieces of equipment that they're looking for, which you initially wouldn't have been able to be afforded on the initial project.
Fantastic. All the other questions I had have been covered in previous answers. Great to meet you, Mr. Hawes. I've
Thank you.
heard your
Thank you.
name come up a lot, so it's good to put a name to a face.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have to give a little shout out to a gentleman named Eli Katz, who came in today. He's one of our graduates and helped us set up our boss laser cutter. He was awesome. And Mr. Castle called him, and he was just such a nice person. And I very much appreciate that. And I want to let you guys know that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
House. Thank
Any
you
other
for being
questions?
here.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a
For
motion?
the approval of the agreement for special services, Mr. Tal Rossini. Second to the motion.
We have to vote on the astro painting.
Wait, did we vote?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Dr. Stern.
Yes.
Mr. Margot,
Yes.
Mrs. Wells,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker Schuman,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, okay?
Okay, so now I'll make a motion for the approval of agreement for special services, Tal Rossini.
I'll second the motion. Motion was moved by Mr. Margot, seconded by Mrs. Marcus. So for discussion or comments at this time?
Do you want me to start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm looking at the contract, and I feel like the basic framework is here in this agreement, but my questions really are around Section 4, which is the general services. And when I look at this, I don't disagree that these are areas that Tao and Rossini work on. However, I feel like they're very they're broad and vague, a little bit vague in terms of trying to manage our budgets and costs. While I understand how we get to where our budgets are, how we allocate our dollars to the legal system, our legal consulting fees, with regards to this contract, and actually for many of our contracts, I feel like what I don't see, or I think that is missing here, is that we don't have mechanisms that allow us to really control or manage how these costs are spent. Once we approve a budget and allocation and we approve POs, it feels to me like we could have better mechanisms that allow us to manage those costs that really ensure that we get the best value for our dollars. I think there's a risk once we approve a PO or we have those allocated costs, that then there can be a tendency to spend to that PO or spend to those allocated costs, even though I know we see the invoices, or in the case of legal, that goes through to the president. I think at that point in time, it's a little bit like the ship has sailed. So what I'd like to see is have this section pulled out and perhaps have an addendum that comes back that shows for these areas of work, create some sort of a budget for each of the areas. And so for each of the matters, what type of work is expected to be done, what's the projected cost for those areas, as a stronger starting place for being able to manage those costs.
Can I respond? President
Mr. Margot?
Mrs. Wells, I appreciate your thought behind this because I climbed this hill for many years. I know the things that we could never pinpoint are what any particular case or legal proceeding will cost us. Lawyers do not tell you. They will not tell you. I think it's probably in their code that they can't tell you because they can't be held to something. Every time we have pried a number out of an attorney, and I would say for everything you said, it would go for every attorney that we have on staff right now, working different sections, special ed, union stuff. The same could be said for all of it that you said about this contract tonight. I don't think this contract is specific to your concerns. I think it's an example, but I think this is an overriding issue. We do the best we can with our budgeting for legal and projections for legal. And I think the only action we probably could take, and Wade, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that when the POs come in for legal, for a law firm, we set that number on the POs, right?
Correct.
We could reduce that number when those POs come in, right? So if they want to do a PO for a law firm for $1 million for a year, we could say, no, let's do it for $750,000. Let's let them come back to us so we can keep a tighter lid on what your concern is. With that we can do. That is in our purview to do that. And I'd be happy to look into that as we move forward with this, but as a solution. But I have never seen any attorney ever in any contract give us projected budgets ever on anything, nor will they. So I don't know if that would happen.
I hear what you're saying. I understand that it's hard to do this and that they're not set numbers. I think it's about putting some sort of mechanisms in place. I think that's one place to put a mechanism. I disagree that they can't have some sort of projected budget based on, what Terry's done in these other areas for the last, few years that he's been here at the district working. He has some sort of a record. He knows what things are going away, what things are going forward, and he can project, given his experience and his expertise, which is why I think that it's Terry that we want to be doing this particular work, that he, better than anyone, would be able to give us some sort of a projection of where those costs are. It doesn't mean that he's held to those costs and their overruns. It means that we have a benchmark from which you can evaluate.
And I appreciate that, and like I said, that you can address in the PO. You can ask him that question, take that information, and base the PO on that information. There's nothing in the contract, in this particular agreement, that would address that, but the PO would.
Right, I agree, except that I think this language is giving approvals for 10 hours of work in very broad categories, so I'd rather remove it and then have that come back out.
Well, that's a question I would ask Wade. Mr. Roach, is there a reason to or not to have that Section 4 in an agreement? By not having it, does it change things? By having it, does it restrict things? That's the question.
Anything.
Mr. President, members of the board, we added Section 4 actually at the request of the board, just to delineate the areas that the Tal Rossini firm would be working on. I have not seen legal contracts that are delineated to this extent. I have seen boards hire a firm just for one case, and they'll put that case number on the contract. But Terry does so many things, or his firm does so many things for us. It's unusual to have this kind of delineation, but I have to agree with some of the statements that our legal fees are not really dictated by who we decide to sue. It's dictated by who decides to sue us. So it's very, very difficult to put a number on these things. But you could say in the purchase order, $750,000, I'm just picking a number, and you could say when it gets to 75% of the PO, let's sit down with the attorney and see how it's going to play out. Right, and we can just do that as a normal staff process.
Or maybe you have to that point, a regular, a review of where you are on those POs for all the open POs that you have, or open POs may not be the right term,
Yeah.
but once
So-
the purchase order is approved, I feel like, yes,
Wait, don't leave it.
that can be true in litigation, but a lot of the facilities advice and counsel, I mean, I think as we're doing our facilities, things can come up where we need legal advice or counsel, and so he can't project totally, but I think he can put some sort of number in, and then we can say, whoa, like, where are we? Like, I feel like what happens instead, where that conversation can happen, and then you can take another look at where we are and what decisions we're making, because I feel like by the time we get the invoices for approval, if it's not, it's already been approved in the purchase order. So there's a tendency for that to get put into motion and then harder to evaluate because we've approved the purchase order. We approved the adopted budget. So this is an invoice that's coming through. It's essentially been approved. So where are the mechanisms in there that say, is this the best use of our legal consultant? Is this what we should be using it for? I think that sometimes, we can have an example of a lawyer is in a meeting and this is nothing to do with Terry personally. I'm speaking really about the process for us as board members, as a district. Like, how are we addressing this? Because this is not a new discussion in some ways. I think it's a common discussion here and many other places. So how do we control those things, manage those things earlier on, except then rather than wait till we get to the budgeting process when we're looking at everything in the adopted budget and we can't really evaluate that. So
No, those are really great questions and great points. With any type of professional services contract, so it's legal, it can be for a musician at a high school, it can be for someone that administers tests for us, any type of professional services contract, there has to be some kind of staff involvement. We have to make sure that professional service is being rendered to a quality and a level that we can find acceptable. So it's up to us as the administration of the school district to make sure those professional services are being rendered. And if they're not being rendered, there's always a provision in the contract for us to bring that information back to the board and say, this professional service renderer of services is not doing his or her job the way we would expect it to be done. So we may need to take these following actions, and we bring that to the board. And that goes for any professional services contract. And it makes it difficult because if I order 100 widgets and I get 100 widgets, I pay the bill. So that makes it really easy. But for professional services agreements, there has to be some interaction between staff and that provider, if you will. So that's why it makes it a little bit different. But your questions are spot on.
and I agree with that. I'm sorry, no.
Go ahead. You finish up.
But I think that it's not that they're doing something wrong. It's that, are they doing too much? Have they extended? Is there not a parameter that can manage those costs and what those decisions are? I know that if I understand correctly, you and Dr. Bragi are the people that are approving the work with our legal consultants. And so, on one hand, that's within your purview to manage those costs. But I think as well, when we have very broad definitions, it's very easy to, want to bring them in for everything because it's, it may be overqualified, but it could be the highest qualified person. I mean, of course you want to have them included, but is it the best choice for certain scenarios? Maybe yes, maybe no. I just think that to have other mechanisms in place that allow that, and I don't know what else, but I certainly wouldn't want to write it in that, but there's even more of a broad definition, and I'd rather come back and, if we could do that or look at having some sort of amendment added or something to this contract or other contracts. My point really is that this should really come out, and we should be looking at putting mechanisms in, and it can be an addendum. We can approve this as the general framework of the contract. I'm not okay with the 10 hours.
But this in itself is protection for us by limiting what he can do for us, and then therefore limiting what he could bill us for.
Can we, I hate to interrupt. Let's see if we have somebody else that wants
Yeah.
to opine on this particular issue, please, before we, if
Mhm.
that's all right with you.
Sure.
Mr. Raymer, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
No, I'm okay.
Thank you. Dr. Stern?
No.
Okay, Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
No, I mean, I think that some of the ideas that were suggested, that Mr. Margot suggested and that Mr. Roach suggested are reasonable. I don't think that that work actually happens in the contract. I think that's staff work, that's admin work, that's oversight, that's not actually what the board chooses, it's what the administrative team chooses. And I'm pretty sure there's not a single person among the cabinet, administration, and board that would say we want to spend, willy-nilly without any accountability. But I also don't think that the staff is saying, well, let's go ahead and bring Terry into a conversation that we don't really need him for. I think everyone's super aware of trying to make sure that our legal bills are controlled and that he's brought into things where his input is needed and relevant. I think that's really the case on all of the legal bills, to be frank. Okay.
So when she talks, could you turn your mic on, Dr. Brady?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Did you want to go, Michelle?
I'm waiting for Mrs. Schuman is finished.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, I know that as a board, we've had this conversation a couple of times when we feel that there's, that the staff may be depending too heavily on a particular provider. And that as a board and then the administrative team says, okay, we really want to bifurcate this and have you work a little more independently. If you need support, then bring it to us for approval. We've done that in the past, and I think that's the right path for this. But in terms of a contract, I mean, I think this is reasonable, and I agree with Mr. Margot that it really protects us by defining the 5 different areas that Mr. Tao works on.
Okay, before we go back to you, I want to make just a couple comments, if I could. As board president, I have the obligation to sign these legal bills. And during the past 6 months, while I had to review and sign many invoices for this particular law firm, it covered many issues such as security, construction, oil wells, MTA, just to name a few. And as I reviewed these bills, and I brought this to the attention of everybody on the board at one point, that I started to question the who authorized the work and the tremendous amount of time that was being spent on these particular things for such things as emails, phone calls, conferences, mediation, research, preparing filings, preparing meetings, attending meetings, offering advice, and much, much more. And I felt that there was no control by our staff or anybody, that the bills just seemed to get way out there, and I was very concerned about it. So when we were presented with the 3-year contract, which we did not pass, and we asked that they bring it back, and then it was brought back for a 1-year term, that it did not address the issues that I had with the original thing, which was the authority and the uncontrolled billing hours. And now I think we are presented with a contract that is able to address these issues. I feel that this is the first time where I now will be able to see that to know there's somebody that's standing there that's approved this work to be done, and that we have control of the hours. I'm not sure that I'm completely comfortable with the word special services, because I think that's a little bit vague right now. Just the word like security, what does that mean? What type of security, and so on and so forth. So I'm not totally happy with that vagueness of some of that. I'm not sure about the 10-hour limit, because that you could just charge 10 hours, just rack it up. If it was a very simple, small case, it could be handled otherwise. I'm just very concerned about that. But I do know this much. This is a better agreement than we've ever had in the past. And for that, I'm not anxious to vote, but I'm concerned about the special services issue being very vague. And I'm very grateful for the words that the authority for the CBO and the superintendent is in there to give the direction and to give the authority to doing that. Right. So those are my comments, and I'll turn it back now to you if you have any other comments.
Can I just make just a quick comment, because I feel like this falls in our wheelhouse every day, and I think that it's healthy to have these conversations, and I think we have them a lot when we're looking at how we're doing things. We're just looking at the overtime in the school district and how can we make this better. So I think these conversations are healthy. I do think it's important, though, to point out that I would challenge anyone to look at this work. Because I don't know another place, another school district in the entire country that is dealing with the types of challenges that we have. If we even began to look at another attorney, I think that we're kind of, we've progressed so much over the last decade that, the work isn't forever, but we're getting closer and closer to finishing. And to have the work of an attorney and who's also an architect and all of those skills, and most importantly, the history of what has happened to our school district and our high school campus. I couldn't imagine bringing on somebody else, having to learn and understand and truly know what we've been through. And I think that, just for my last comment, that so much of what's happened in our school district, it plays a part on where we're going. And I think that's an important part for Terry. And I think that, and just in this firm. And again, just like any other firm, Mr. Roach and I and Mrs. Marcus does a really good job. A really good job of looking at the legal bills. And we do spend a lot of time. And I think that I will say, for this firm, they're really responsive to a lot of the things that we have brought up in some of the conversations. And I know that that's frustrating and legal bills are high, but I think that to have a firm that is willing to work with us, where we are right now, meeting our needs where we're at, is really good for the district. We're in this final chapter.
And more comments, questions? Mary?
Well, I just want to reiterate, I don't have a problem at all listing what the areas of work that are listed in the contract. And like I said in the beginning, I feel like the general framework of this contract is all there. I feel what's missing is the mechanisms for which to control or to manage those costs. And that's why I suggested that there is an addendum to this contract. And I feel like that would be worthwhile for everyone, to allow us to really be able to focus on ensuring that we're getting the best value out of our dollars. This isn't personal or questioning the value or the qualifications of Tao and Rossini, because I think that they obviously have proved that they have provided the district with that institutional knowledge. I'm really just referring to this contract, and that's my issue about it. It's not the work that he does, the work that he's working on, or whether someone else should be doing his work. From a legal standpoint, I'm talking about more of managing the other costs that we could potentially manage better, so that we have more dollars to go towards our students. So I would really like to take out this idea of the 10 hours per engagement, or to address some sort of addendum for budgeting. Does anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are actually, I believe that section protects us because it specifically says that anything other than what's listed here has to be authorized by the superintendent and a designee. So it prevents him from doing extra legal work without them knowing. And obviously, if it's more than 10 hours, I'm assuming it's the board, correct? Has to approve it. So they're the first line of defense, and we're the second line of defense of any overspending. And I'll reiterate again, the purchase order is our best control over expenses. We can greatly reduce purchase orders and revisit them, and like Wade said, keep a check, a stopgap. Is that what you said? Get a stopgap on and for this firm and all of our firms, by the way, I think we should really look into that. Whatever control we put on one legal entity, we should do it on all of them because we constantly have this problem with everybody. So,
Well, I would make a suggestion to that effect that when work is going to be engaged in where he foresees that it's 10 hours of work or it's going to be more than 10 hours of work, that he communicates that to the district, to whomever it is, that's either you, Wade, or to Michael, so that you're informed that that work's beginning. Or, in any of these areas, that there's a project he's working on or something within that matter that he's working on, and he foresees that to be more than a few hours, then that's something that he alerts you to, so that then you can have that on your radar and start those discussions of where that issue is going.
but according to this, if it's going to be more than 10 hours, you guys can't give approval for it. We have to give approval for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, once he starts it, if it's looking like it's
gonna
going to
shift
be
from
more than
10
a
to
couple
10
a
plus.
couple hours, then
I
it's
think
something he
I
can
think
alert.
they know offhand whether it's going to be more than 10. It's either going to be a half an hour or it's going to be weeks.
Right. No, I mean, I
So-
think there's some certain issues that have come up or projects that get worked on that can be, start one way and end up becoming more. And I think it's just, I'm really just trying to put mechanisms in that allow us to better manage from the time we approve our purchase orders.
And Mrs.
to
Wells,
the end.
I totally agree that I support mechanisms being put in place on a grand scale through our district through controlling legal bills. I just don't think a special service agreement is the place to do it.
Right.
Mr. Raymer.
This may be small, but at the bottom where the signatures are, it says this agreement is entered into this 27th day of July 2021. Does that have to be altered as we did not approve it on that date?
Wouldn't say what?
It was pulled at that meeting.
Right.
That we did not approve it.
So I'm saying, would that have to be changed to August 10th if we approve
What?
it today?
It just because it just crossed through it, and then they're going to date the signatures anyway.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Can we call the question?
Yes, I'm going to call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern? Yes. Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And I will vote yes for this based on the fact that I got all of the changes that I wanted. I really fought for this. I mean, you guys, thank you very much, but you're going to appreciate the fact that there's more control now. I would love to show you all of the invoices that I used to see. And by the way, we've already finished the vote, but list the last comment. Remember that invoices come in after purchase orders, so it's the aftermath that I'm seeing. So just remind you of that,
Yep.
okay? Okay, so we can put that aside, thank you.
Okay, then I'll make a
And can
motion.
we have a motion for the other item, please?
I'll make a motion to ratify purchase order report number 3, 2021-2022.
I'll second.
Wait, are you, there was one more, 8N, is that 8N?
That's 8N.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, okay. I've lost here it is, okay. Thank you. You made the motion, Mr. Margot, who was the second?
I'll second.
Dr. Stern, thank you very much. Any discussion or questions on that one? I believe that there was some questions on that.
It's me again.
Okay, Mrs. Wells?
I just had a question, and the vendor name is Development Services, Inc., and I would like to know who Development Services, Inc. is.
So as the board knows, we've gone to a new financial system and we're finding little problems in the reports. That's the truncated name for TCDS, Total Concepts Development Systems. So that truncated the name on whatever you're looking at.
So the box can't open more. So we have the lettering.
It's not toxic.
Great software.
Toxic chemicals?
Yeah. So
That's the stuff the county put on
so
us?
development services is TCDS, Total Concept Development Services.
Well, that answers a lot of
Yeah.
questions.
Oh yeah, Team Concepts. Sorry,
That's not Don Blake then.
Yeah, that's TCDS.
Oh,
yes.
that is,
Yeah.
okay, all right, okay.
And just to clarify, these are the management fees. I mean, these are the PO for the management of the bond program.
It
for the
is,
different
but we
projects.
also have Pam Johnson on the line, I believe. There she is. She helped develop these purchase orders. If you have any specific questions, she's available to answer those. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Good evening, board members. Mrs. Wells, the purchase order that you're seeing is for the bond management. It's two components. First is a staffing plan that is reviewed by Mr. Roach
So it's just that.
to ensure that it is aligned with the contract. And then the second is the fee, and that is an estimated amount because, as you know, it's only on hard costs. So to get to a number for the budget, we have to estimate what work will be done in 21-22 and then apply the fee to that. So the purchase order is per contract, but again, it's just an estimate because there are moving parts.
Thank you. Any comments, Mr. Mr. Raymer, do you have anything? No?
Mandy, do you have anything?
No.
Pam, so I had asked, and I just want a little more clarification. It's broken up into 8 parts. And it was explained, now you just explained 2 parts. There's the staffing and the fee. So just, it was explained that it's different billing codes is why it's broken into 8 parts.
Yes, and you can thank Mr. Roach for this one.
Thank you. Thank
It
you.
is at his request so that the district can better track the fees against projects. So each one of those lines is for a specific accounting goal. For instance, if you look at 91603, that's everything for B1, B2.
That's what I was going to ask is, so it's broken down by, for now, El Rodeo, I guess, is a line, and then the B1, B2, B3, B4, site work. Okay, understood. Thank you.
Pam, when you invoice for time for the project managers on the different at the different sites on the different projects, which I'm assuming are these 8 line items, that's your PO to bill against. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. So call for is there any other comment?
Oh, I have one last question.
Yep.
Does that also include the fee, the hard cost fee? Is that broken out through these budgets?
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, call for the question. Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Dr. Stern.
Yes.
Mr. Margot.
Yes.
Mrs. Wells.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Yes.
Mrs. Marcus is a yes. The ratification is 5-0, 6-0. Okay, well, Dr. Briggy, we are ready for your superintendent's report.
Is it only me? Well, at least you're not doing anything strange.
Is there any way we can move some of that?
Hmm?
Like the,
Can't you move it from the?
no, because it's not on my screen, but is
Oh.
there, can we close that? Thank you, appreciate that.
Good thing you put the VP of the robotics right there.
That was strategically placed. And so I just want to start off by sharing and just thanking our community, parents that have spoken out earlier. I'm always interested to have conversations and hear feedback from our parents. So thank you to Mrs. Neiman, Mrs. Wolchin, and Mr. Bierman, so much for that information. It's just really important for us to continue to hear you and understand your feedback. As was mentioned, the Ready Together plan is a plan that we've been working on for about a year and a half, and it grows, it changes, it evolves as the conditions in our community changes. And so we stay very up to date, very aligned with what's happening in the LA County Department of Public Health. And really want to just emphasize the point that in this type of plan, and you'll see differences in these plans if you look at different school districts. In fact, you can go on any school district and you can see what they call their Ready Together plan. And the most important thing for people to remember is that the LA County Department of Public Health provides the alignment and guidance for us. And what's important to know about that is that we as a school district, we can't do anything less. We can't make, we can be more controlling. We can't be less restrictive than what LA County is telling us that we need to do and the guidance we need to follow. And I know that there's some people that just don't understand the health orders that come from LA County Department of Public Health. It is not up to us for the things that are in our Ready Together plan to do anything differently. And we have to report to them. We attend meetings weekly. And if we do not stay aligned with this guidance, they can shut our schools down. And so that's why it's important for people to understand that we have to follow that baseline. And then we as a school district can be, we can have more control. We can be more restrictive with some of the things that we're doing. So there's a picture here of a phone and our Instagram. And this is up here because we're really wanting to emphasize to our community that even information in a very big Ready Together plan can be easily accessible right on your phone. They're mobile friendly. This is just an example. You can see all the screenshots here that you can actually, without having to look at on your computer, that you can actually read the entire Ready Together plan on your phone. So I want to talk just a little bit about our students and staff and our health screening that we do every day. This is a picture of what this looks like in Parent Square. That's very easy. We are requiring the health screening again for our students and staff this year. And I can tell you that there is good reason for that. And I know that there's feedback around this. I can't tell you this summer, in some of our summer programs, when people weren't following the health screening, that they were coming to school and they didn't feel well and they were sick. And that turned out to be positive cases. So the health screening is a reminder for families and for staff. I do it myself every day, that we check in with ourselves. We do have on the right-hand side, we do have our thermal scanners that do our temperatures every day. Our kids don't even know that temperatures are being taken because it's a really, it's not an intrusive system like a lot of school districts have. And that is in place at every one of our buildings. So new teacher orientation was last week, and due to a variety of things that happened through attrition and people moving and people retiring, and we filled 11 positions for our teachers. So we last week had an opportunity to spend the day with them. Mr. Seaman organized this entire day. It was very exciting. It's always fun to welcome our new teachers. And we were there as a cabinet and Dustin's staff to help welcome our new teachers. We actually did this in the new media room in B1, B2. And it's just a very exciting space. And it was kind of a fun way to be able to bring people in for this meeting for new teachers. So obviously, the most fun is when we get to go to our schools and we're able to see our students. And so at Hawthorne, our kindergarten assessments began last week. And so here's just another shot of this adorable kindergarten student who has showed up for her assessment. She had an opportunity to meet her teachers, see where her classroom is, and that was always very exciting, and that was held outside. A little bit different at Horace Mann, same type of meet and greet at Horace Mann, where students had the opportunity to start getting acquainted with their teacher, their classroom, and some of their classmates. All of our registration now is online, so we have something new. So this is the high school. It's a distribution day. So this was a day that we were able to have students come and collect textbooks, and there was staff there People could meet with different staff. They could get reacquainted with one another. And it's just an opportunity to, it's a one-stop shop, and it was an opportunity for our kids to come on campus again and start to collect the things that they need to be successful on the first day. And our sixth grade orientation. So yesterday was our sixth grade orientation with Dr. Scahn and the PTA at BVMS. It was very well attended. It was very exciting. Our sixth grade was yesterday. Today was in the morning and afternoon. We broke up the sessions for our 7th and 8th grade. So we are off to a really good start working with our PTAs in our schools. And then just this morning, we had, or it was yesterday. It was yesterday. My days are all running together. So yesterday, after BVMS, we rode right over to the high school. What an amazing setup this was in the courtyard, I have to tell you, with the use of technology. It was just, Mr. Mead and his administration did a great job of welcoming our 9th grade students and our parents, as well as the PTSA. It was just really a great time for parents to, again, make contact, get their cabinet members there, and we just had a really good time, and it was really set up very nicely. And so special thank you to Janine Raymer and Rose Kaiserman for the PTSA, because it was really an outstanding event. So we're taking one day at a time. So our first day of the school is coming this Friday, and so here are some start times. Because of the start date this year, which is unusual, and it's because it's negotiated and there's a certain number of days, 180 days that staff are working. It just so happened that it fell on our calendar on a Friday as a start date, but our schools are going to take advantage of this time to have some orientation, and we're very excited to welcome all of our students on Friday. Final bell schedules, and sorry that there's a typo in there, that the bell schedules are all online, so you can go right to each school. Each website has the bell schedule, and also for our elementary schools for drop-off and pickup, you can see some really nice, clear maps and graphics to help with the traffic. I wanted to give you just a little bit of an enrollment update, and I think that this is interesting to find out where we are today. Actually, this was as of yesterday. On the left-hand column is the school. The next column to the right for 2021, that's the number of students that are in independent study. And then we have the school year 2021, which is our current year. And then we put in, just for comparison, last year for 2020. And what's interesting, and I want to point this out, is that when you're in independent study, you don't lose that seat in your classroom. So the numbers that are in independent study, those numbers are absorbed into the 2021 numbers. So that gives you kind of an idea. If you just look at the 2021, 2020, that's a good comparison from year to year. I can tell you that going back early always presents ourselves with challenges. Just today alone, 4 or 5 families coming in today to register. So it's, I think Ms. Chisholm told me that the week before there was like 41. So they're still coming in. And so it's awesome to be able to welcome new families that drive up. They have the pickup truck, they have the moving truck, and they're just so excited to be able to enroll their kids here. So that's happening every day, multiple times. So we will see those numbers change over the next several days. So I just wanted to put up here just some of our layers of protection. And as I talked about the LA County Department of Public Health order, but it is our job to ensure that we have layers of protection for our students. And again, the LA County Department of Public Health gives you kind of that, this is what you need to do. And we can do a little bit more on our side. And we actually are doing that compared to a lot of school districts. So we do know that the number one layer of protection for slowing and mitigating the transmission of COVID-19 is having a vaccine. So we do encourage those that are eligible to go out and have their vaccine. We still are taking our health screenings, as I talked about earlier. Masks at this time, if you are inside, it's very easy to remember. Anytime you are inside, you're masking up. And outdoors right now is optional. We do have COVID-19 testing in place. Currently, we have it in place for those students that are in class and symptomatic. We also have this in place for our staff, and we are testing every day. And this is one of those areas that, as conditions change in our community, that we are looking at the requirements that we currently have. And we are working on them right now. We're actually working on creating the safest environment that we possibly can. Our goal, and something I'll talk about with opening day on Thursday, is to keep our schools open with the least amount of disruption to the delivery of instruction for our students. And when you make that goal, you are putting yourself in a position where you're going to have to pivot when needed. And we are in great conversations with all of our labor unions right now. But some of the things that we have right now that we are working on are going to grow, change, and evolve just like what's happening in the pandemic. And so there's areas that are going to be tighter controlled, and we are working on those because it's our responsibility to ensure every layer of protection possible is something that we're providing to our families, our students, and our staff. So ending with just ventilation and cleaning, dispection, these are the same protocols that we've had in place. And while the LA County Department of Public Health have dropped physical distancing requirements, we are fortunate in our school district to have low class sizes, and that we are doing everything that we can to keep our students physically distanced in our classrooms because of our low class sizes. And teachers are getting really creative and innovative, and they're using a lot of outdoor space. And so we applaud our staff for, at any time possible, to be providing as much physical distance as we can. And so, like I said, this is going to grow. This is going to change. As the pandemic continues, we are going to react responsibly and accordingly. And so you can guarantee that from us, despite knowing that this is a very difficult conversation that families are having. You heard just tonight, you've got people that have very solid views. And we're looking at this from a perspective of supporting what has been told to us in our LA County Department of Public Health, the health order, and also what we're doing in our school district that we know to keep our community safe. So we're very excited about having a plan that's going to grow and change over the next several weeks, just like it has in the last almost 2 years. So we're doing a lot on Instagram. So if you haven't had the opportunity to sign up, get on there. We are getting a lot of followers. We're finding that our community is very connected to Instagram, and so we're watching that grow. We have a district site. We have sites at each school building. And what's really changed and evolved over time is, whose responsibility is that to do that? And so we've had a lot of professional development. At a leadership retreat, Ms. Starkins had all of us, and explained that we're all responsible for, catching these moments, at that time, at that event, because one person can't be anywhere. And so we're all authors, so to speak, of this story and this journey in our school district. And so we've had some sessions and some training with Ms. Starkins to, post things, how to post them, how to caption them. And it was a really, really good session. And so just in the last couple of weeks, this is just exploding, the amount of content that's being placed onto our Instagram. So I encourage everybody to follow the very latest on Instagram. And that is my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brecky. Before I go to you, Mr. Raymer, I'd like to ask if anybody had any comments from the board on the report. Start with you, Mrs. Walker Sherman. It's your turn first this week.
Oh, sure.
Since we're sharing. Thank you so much for covering so much. I think really important as we're about to launch into the beginning of the school year. There were a couple things that were brought up, and I just wanted to, cover them, ask them. I know that the Ready Together plan was consistent with LA County public health recommendations, but there were a couple questions that were brought up that are interesting points. So in terms of enforcement, if there's a student that is not wearing their mask and has been reminded and isn't complying, or for that matter, if there's an admin that's walking around, a teacher or somebody else that's not complying, can you address a little bit what the consequence looks like or how that's managed so that it's not an assumption that it's just accepted and should is a recommendation, but there's no actual consequence or follow through?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So it is very rare. I feel like everything from our students and our staff have been so exposed to what's required and what's acceptable, and we've spent a lot of time working with staff on that. Everybody contributes to making our schools the safest environment possible. So we don't see a lot of people that are outwardly in defiance of wearing a mask in a school. But when that does happen or somebody forgets, even through PBIS, our students are so amazing. Sometimes we've watched this where kids will actually, just kind of point to another student and say, okay, your mask is down, which is amazing. But when we see it, we take care of it. And, if there is that situation, it has happened, just like any other expectation at our schools that need to be followed. If they're not, there is, a disciplinary procedure that is put into place because it's not a choice. You can't. Everybody is wearing a mask, so we do have measures in place. We didn't think that the Ready Together plan needed that information. We wanted to be as proactive as we could. We wanted to tell and share what our expectations were. But for the plan, we didn't want to design and put something in a plan for the very few students that are not following directions.
Right. Thank you so much. Let's see. Are we going to offer? I know we had vaccinations that were offered multiple different times in the past. Are we going to bring that back at some point, or are we going to limit it just to the COVID testing?
So at this time, there isn't any plans to bring vaccinations to any of our sites at this time. There's just so many places. What we found, even with our own staff, that there just seemed to be such a supply that we didn't really need to do that. I'm glad that we did that because it made it easy for a lot of our staff. But there's just so many places out there that our community has been very open to providing vaccines that we feel like they're really, really accessible here.
Awesome. Okay.
Nothing.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Mr. Raymer, before I call on you for your report, is there anything you'd like to say in response to Dr. Briggy's report?
I have no questions. I will say he stole a bit of my thunder from my report, so we'll get a double report about freshman orientation. But
I had a feeling that was going to happen.
Can I ask a question? Actually?
Yes, I'm coming. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Stern.
Thank you, Dr. Breggy, for the going through the Ready Together plan. Just a question. I know that you said that testing is available on one or more school sites. So if a parent, let's say, woke up and their kid was having what appeared to be or could be something, that was COVID or not, is it possible for them to then take that child on campus to be tested, or is that encouraged, or is it more that they should seek out that type of testing in the community?
So that's a great question. So we have opened up our testing to that if there is a student that is feeling symptomatic, that we will allow a student to go ahead and get tested through our rapid antigen testing. That's 97% accurate. We will do that. There's just so many places that you can go now that we've allowed parents to go anywhere that they want to. But if kids are here and they are in a classroom and they are a close contact or asymptomatic, we actually insist that they test with us so that it's right here, we can get results right away, because the part that happens after is the work that nobody gets to see, and that's all of the contact tracing, and I will say we've been pretty busy because the couple of cases that we've just had recently have all stemmed from, I wasn't feeling good, but I came to school anyway. And so that's super frustrating because, or there's a family member that is positive, but the student feels asymptomatic and they're going to come to school anyway. So it's educating people about what a close contact is, and that this is not the place to come if you are a close contact or you are not feeling well. And so that's what I would say to that question. And that, but if kids are here and we do have that available for our students.
Right, but you wouldn't recommend that, say, a parent wakes up, gets ready to go to school, and the kid then says, I don't know, I'm a little sniffly. You wouldn't recommend that the parent comes to here for testing.
Well, if a student is at home,
yeah,
and with a parent, and it could be a variety of things, that is a parent decision, what they're doing in the morning. If it's at home, and there's testing that's available sooner, I would recommend that they go and they get that test, without coming onto the school campus. Okay. So that's certainly what I would recommend. And can I just say one last thing, because I think we did such a great job. We don't really pat ourselves on the back, but last year we were one of the first school districts to go back, even with a full schedule. Many school districts ended with a very shortened schedule, and we were back, and we had, our students were all welcome back. And I do want to say, because we don't celebrate this often, and it's hard to celebrate anything in a pandemic, but the layers of protection that we have are working. And so, of course there's cases. We're going to have cases. So it's not, if, it's when. And so, but it's how we react to those. And so looking at last year and ending on the note that we did, we didn't have any cases that were epidemiologically linked. And that's pretty amazing because of what we're doing at school. What we're counting on is for parents and families to continue that type of environment and protocols in your household, when you're at home, in watching and limiting what you do on weekends, and not attending big birthday parties and Six Flags and things like that, and then showing up on Monday, and not feeling well. But I just want to pat ourselves on the back. Those layers of protection, they're working.
Mr. Margot?
I'm good, thank you.
Mrs. Wells?
I'm good, thank you.
I would just like to make a comment, a very quick comment. I noticed that our enrollment is higher right now than it was last year, which is very encouraging because we've been slowly dropping, and here we are. Even though it's independent study and the regular, they're still part of our school district. So I was very happy to see that our numbers are up, and that's a good sign. I think that was my basic comment. I hope that some of the teachers will take advantage of taking the kids outside and using a little bit of the outdoor education where the masks could possibly be removed when they're outside, which might be something that would help the students a little bit, if that's possible. That was just a thought that I had. And with that in mind, I will now turn it over to you, Mr. Raymer, for your student report.
I remembered the question that I had for Dr. Breggy, so if I could ask him one final question about his report first, that would be fantastic. Thank you. It's about the increased enrollment at the middle and high school level with the decreased enrollment at the elementary school level. Is there any reason why we're seeing a decrease in the K through 5 but an increase in the 6 through 12?
So I would say it's a little bit early. We have to let this shake out to see where this is. I think that we're aware that just nationally, that there is lower enrollment, and there are families that are still making decisions what are best for their students. So I don't think that there's anything statistically significant at this point to make that type of determination. We are working with new demographers that are just really, they have a really great methodology. And so we're going to be able to take a kind of a different and deeper dive than we have in the past. So I would say, in the next several months, we'll be able to see this shake out as far as our enrollment, and then start look at some of the trends in the entire community.
Eli, just before you go on, I just have one little comment. Many of the parents of the lower grade kids put them in the private schools during this time, and a lot of them have not yet returned. I think we're going to see with the programs that we offer that might change their minds and bring them back. So I think a lot of kids were put into private schools during that time, thinking they would get a bigger education, a more comprehensive education when we were down, but that's not the case now. So I think that will change. I have hope that will change.
In the future, let's shoot me what you want to talk about, because that's the last thing I want to do is talk about, and take that away from you. So we'll coordinate for the next meetings.
Absolutely no worries about that. May I begin?
Go right ahead.
Fantastic.
It's your stage.
First thing I would like to ask, is my voice amplified to the room, or am I hearing it differently?
We can hear you.
Okay. I've been curious about that the whole time. Thank you for the confirmation. I took a page out of Dr. Breggy's book this time, and I made a slideshow of my own. So let's see if this button works. I'm not going to worry with that. Allow me to share my screen. So if you do notice, it looks very similar to Dr. Breggy's report last week. I know he's very big on branding, so I decided to take that. So thank you very much. I've gone with a minimalist's approach. There are only pictures on each slide, and I will narrate as I go. So first, we're going to begin with band camp. The marching band has an annual activity in the week leading up to school. This time it was in the 2 weeks leading up to school. We started last Friday, and we will continue. Our last day is tomorrow. So these band students have come to school during their summer to learn the proper techniques they need to march, as well as different commands and these things we do called drill downs, where we enforce those commands, such as their movement in place, as well as call and response. It's a great time. We do a lot of games as well. We have these things called unity groups. So it's almost like a secondary link crew for those students who are in band, because it gives the freshmen an opportunity to mingle and meet some of the upper level students, as well as increase their musical skills by association with them. So I've got some pictures from that. These are all from the first day. All regulations are being followed in terms of COVID guidelines, and so far we've been having a great time. Now on to freshman orientation. So I've got a solid bit of pictures. I had a lot of friends who were link leaders this year, so I figured I would share some photos that they took. So this is what the freshmen were met with when they first got to school. People on the corner ushering them in, as well as throughout the school up to the cafeteria and the second floor patio where their day sort of began. They received some speeches by link leaders. The photo on the right is of the ASB president, who was a link leader this year, who was speaking to the crowd. We had about 250 freshmen show up for freshman orientation, which is absolutely fantastic. We were also able to then distribute their books, as well as play a variety of games, of team building games, with their link leaders. They got tours of the new buildings, which I got to tour this afternoon, which was a lot of fun. I'd only seen the first floor up until then, but I got to go up see some of the classrooms, as I know some of the other board members did last week. And then they were fed by PTSA. Good cap to that fantastic day. On this next slide, I have other news, and other news is in no way less important than what I just said. It just means I did not have any photos available to me to show. So one of the things I was going to talk about was distribution days. Those went very smoothly. I worked in the book room On the senior distribution day, I also went in on a day before to help and pull the books for the freshman class because they were set aside beforehand. Those went very smoothly. We had ASB volunteers. We also had PTSA volunteers who've been there all week, working very hard to ensure that those went smoothly. Today was hopefully the final distribution day, and it was the makeup day for those who could not attend the other distribution days. For anyone who missed their designated day and the makeup day, my biggest recommendation would be to, on the first day of school, head to the book room and see if someone is there to pull your books for you, because we would not want you to fall behind or have any less materials for the class than any of your classmates do or that your teacher would expect. I also wanted to say that sports tryouts and conditioning have begun on the field as well. That's very exciting to see. I have a lot of friends in sports, and they're all really enjoying getting back into the spirit of sports and that camaraderie with their team that they somewhat lost in this past year. And it almost seems like coming out of COVID, it's reignited their spirit to really try hard in this season. So I think we should see some excellent games. Now I have some recognitions of specific people and organizations. If I miss anyone, I do apologize. These were the people who came to my mind at first. One of them is the Link Leaders, who gave up parts of their summer to come in and transition the freshmen to the high school, as well, not just the day of, but also days in preparation. Mr. Hangler, who is the ASB advisor and English teacher at the high school, who was basically in charge of running the Link Crew program along with the students. I know he's put in a lot of work with that. I got to know him very well this past year, and the work he does is fantastic. Next is Mr. Ellis, because he has been able to coordinate the uses of the field between sports and band, even though they all require use of the field, so he's done a great job handling that as well as getting sports back up and running. Mr. Bradbury, who is the band director and orchestra teacher at the high school, he has also put in days of his summer. The only part of band camp he's missing, we actually scheduled around it, was for staff development. So he's come in these past couple of days and even days beforehand to plan with the drum major team as well as the other band leadership, so we thank him for that. Next, the BHHS administration team for their work on the new parent orientation as well as coordinating the distribution days. The BHHS counseling staff for making the master schedule and getting those schedules to everyone so that they could get their books and so they can prepare for the classes that they have. And the BHHS PTSA for putting in, bringing food and also manpower to the events that they've put on and helped out with. So thank you. Any questions?
Wow, what a comprehensive report. I have a couple of comments that I'd like to make or questions for you. Are you in band?
I am. I'm one of the 3 drum majors this next year. We have a head drum major, and I'm one of the 2 assistants.
Drum major, what do you play?
I play the, it's funny you ask. I play the euphonium or baritone horn, which not many people know, and the way I describe it is like a small tuba that sounds like a trombone. It's mainly used in like concert band settings.
So you were out there this week with the, I get all the news now that I get everything now. They saw it for a while. I didn't ever know what was going on, but now I really do. What can I say? I'd just like to say that I suppose you noticed that the pathways, I hope there's a lot of new students from Beverly Vista that are now part of the band, and that pathway has led a way for us to get that band, is up and going like it should be, and I'm sure it is. So I was just commenting to myself that I bet you there's a lot of kids from BV now that, because I know the music program, the orchestra and band program at BV is amazing. So
yeah, we have seen declining enrollment in band over the past couple of years, but we are hoping that having the one consolidated middle school will allow us to get more students in the future. We're trying to coordinate with Miss Valens at the middle school to do a kind of a band recruitment day where the drum majors and Mr. Bradbury are able to go and speak to her band classes to try and recruit people to the marching band in the future, and having them all in one place definitely helps with that. So yes, we are seeing a solid bit of new freshmen, and they're all very enthusiastic, which is fantastic to see.
And another comment that I had is that this particular event you had with all of the freshmen coming in, and that just must have been a tremendous lift for the spirit of the school and for the recruitment maybe to your own ASB, which you would probably welcome so many of them, and for them to see how they can get involved so that they can enjoy their years in the high school. And I think that is a wonderful thing that you did. I don't know if it's been on the past, but I'm just going from what I saw just this one time. So I want to compliment you on that, and how that will, with this whole idea of spirit, is to infuse it in the student body. And I think you're on your way with events like that. So keep it up.
Yeah, one of our main goals in ASB this next year is growing the size of the class and the amount of people who know about our events. Mr. Hangler was involved in ASB when he was in high school, and his ASB, I think he said, was around 50 or 60 people, which is absolutely massive, and ours in the past has been around 20 or 25. This year, I believe we have around 35, and hopefully at the semester mark, we may get even more from that new freshman class, as well as anyone else who wants to join. We would love to have you.
Well, thank you for your report. I'll turn it over to the rest of the board to see if they have any comments. Dr. Stern?
No.
Mr. Margot?
No.
Mrs. Wells?
I'd just like to say thank you, Eli, for your presentation. And I have to say you're such a hardworking student board member, and I think you're a wonderful role model, I'm sure, and ambassador for ASB. So I just want to thank you.
I appreciate that very much. I do hope to include presentations like that in my board reports in the future as well.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. We have to have a motion for 10A, I believe.
It's a presentation only.
Oh, it's only informational. Okay, who's going to address that? Is that going to be Mr. Dustin Seaman? I see he's right there ready.
Yes. Again, can you hear this? Every year we bring this. It does say it's a 3-year contract, but we always want to be able to celebrate and include this collaboration that we have with Santa Monica College. So first, I kind of want to open up the door just to say thanks to Santa Monica College for being able to partner with us on our dual enrollment education program. The exciting part about this year's contract, or this year's collaboration, is we've actually doubled in size. So 2 years ago, when we brought this to you, we only had 4 classes that our students were able to get dual enrollment credit in, and that happened to be KBEV, so thank you, Romeo Carey back there, Mr. Carey, and Mr. Briggs's photography program. And so you'll see that through the extension of our Pathways programs, we're able to offer our fashion course. Now our students are able to gain college credit by taking the course here with Miss Bella Ivory. And then also our business pathway, which is super exciting that we got all 3 courses to be approved, not only through the NCAA, but also through SMC. So our students that are entering out of our financial literacy, which would be kind of that first introductory course, they have the opportunity to take 3 additional courses to be able to earn college credit and be able to apply into a business program for post-secondary. So those are exciting. So I want to thank Cindy Dubin. I want to thank the Board of Education for making this happen, and SMC. And so it's really just information only for everybody.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from anybody? I know that it's exciting to see our kids matriculating to college before they even leave high school.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you. Okay, and now we're on to, I need a motion for 11A.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the amended and restated bylaws to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
I'll second the motion. Moved by Mr. Margot, seconded by Mrs. Marcus. Any questions or comments on that? I would just like to ask, or make a comment. I believe this motion is to bring the selection into the same method as the one for the, or is there something that's different than the last one? I think it's.
I believe that when the last time we made the revision that we voted on, the original document that it was made to was actually an older version of the bylaws. So this just amends it to be the newer version of the bylaws, including the amendment we voted on.
Okay. All right.
And can I just say this is, and I just as a matter of protocol going forward, even including this document, we really need to put a revision date on the front because I get it too. We looked through it. We wanted to make sure that there was, that the information that we just voted on is the same. But we really, and this goes for everybody, we have to put revisions on the front page so that we don't find ourselves in situations like this where we're having to bring this back to the Board of Education. So it's not just facilities. It's not just, this work. It's really everywhere. I'm seeing a lot of this happen.
Yeah, I'd like to make a little comment on that. Right now, we are looking for new members to apply for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, and I believe there are applications out there right now. And so if anybody is interested, I hope you'll go on the website and find the application. We're looking for, I believe, 2 or 3 new members. I'm not quite sure of the number, but I do know that we have a couple members that are being termed off, and we do need some new members. So if you know anybody that would be interested in working on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, please, for the audience out there, let people know that we are looking for them, and they can get the information off of the website. Okay, I will call for the question.
Are we having discussion on this?
Oh yeah, okay, okay, go ahead.
I do have a quick question. It does say, and I'm unsure of the legality of this, but it does say that have all 5 board members sitting. Is there a way to add that the student board member be included, or do you believe that that would be a worthwhile endeavor to undertake, and would it be legal to include the student board member in the future in these interviews? Possibly not as a full voting member, as I don't have a full vote here, but as someone who has the ability to sit in and provide input.
Dr. Briggy? Well,
it's certainly up to the board on if they want to make some amendments to the bylaws. I would say that the deliberations part though is not a public process. So that happens in closed session. So I don't know how that would be taken into consideration to be part of the deliberations afterwards. So.
Do we need to maybe check with council on that, or do you think ask Jabari about that, or do you
well, I know that, if the board wanted to have the student board member as part of the process, that's one piece, but the other the deliberations piece is that I know wouldn't that part is not done in an open session setting, so that part would be of issue. So
I don't have a problem with being
Go ahead.
part of the process. I think it's a full experience.
Well, all I would say is if there is a process that's open, the first part you were talking about, he's entitled to attend regardless of whether it's in the bylaws or not. So it's a public, it's just because all 5 of us are meeting, so it's public. It's not posted as closed. So I think you don't have to change the language. We can notify you when we're doing those, and you're welcome to attend.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Great.
Okay, can we call for the question? Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern? Yes. Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes, so it passes 6-0. Okay, I will move for the ratification of amendment number 1 to the vendor services agreement with King Office Services to provide moving services for the facilities and construction office at El Rodeo School. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Walker-Schuman. Okay, any comments, questions, deliberations?
I'm just thinking at the beginning of this whole thing, we should have built our own moving company.
And COVID testing company too.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is an amendment to the moving services. The original, they were moving from the front to the back because of the change in where they were going to be working. I believe that's what this was all about. What necessitated an amendment to that particular motion. Maybe Pam, you have an
Well,
answer for that?
It's additional work. It's new additional work, so it has to come as an amendment to the previous work.
Mrs. Marcus, if I could, when the original contract was entered into, we had to estimate when we were going to move. And as you might imagine, the moving companies are very busy in the summer. So we had to lock in a date. And then fortunately, I could say, the construction accelerated in the area we were, so we had to move up 3 days, and there's a storage component in there. So that's why.
Thank you very much for that explanation. That's good news. Okay, any other comment on that? Mr. Raymer? Voting on Dr. Stern?
No.
Mr. Margot?
Wait.
Comments
is
or
that
votes?
Your vote or is
No,
that
we're
your
voting.
comment?
Oh, did you?
This is for a vote. Let's start
For a
over.
vote.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought there was no more discussion.
Moving.
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of the time for comments from board members. Mr. Raymer, do you have some comments to make?
I do. So I wanted to take a moment, due to my absence at the special board meeting on August 2nd. I was not able to formally state my preferential vote then, but I would like to bring it up now. The vote was taken to ratify PO number 220000000021 for $2.85 million for bond program management on security. My vote would have been cast as a no. I believed it to be irresponsible to approve such a large single sum of money when the requested study session has not been held. I would have been in favor of approving the smaller sum of $600,000 now and rest after the study session is held. I understand that my vote on this cannot be logged in the minutes of this past meeting, but I did want to make a formal statement of my opinion on the matter with the information that I have. Now, after that, we've got 3 days until school starts. I just say continue being safe, continue wearing your mask, get vaccinated if you can, and I am looking forward to seeing everyone in person on Friday. And also thank you, KBEV. We appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stern? Mr. Margot?
Thank you. I just want to wish all our staff and our students a wonderful first day coming up. I'm sorry your summer is coming to a close quicker than possibly imagined, and hopefully we will continue to get out of the mire of this pandemic together and be safe and happy. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the staff for all the hard work that they put into getting ready for school opening on Friday, and I really am excited for the kids to come back. I think you can feel the excitement, and I'm really looking forward to a wonderful school year.
I will triple the effect and say thank you to the staff, faculty cabinet who's worked tirelessly over the summer to make sure all of the protocols and plans were in place. While they're not final, they certainly go a long distance to make sure that we are proactively prepared. I would like to reinforce that the pandemic is not over, and we will all rise together if we're successful, and we will all fail together and fall together if we are not. And what that looks like is compliance. Whether you agree with the mask mandate or not, whether your ideology is supportive of the mask mandate or vaccines or anything else, our success as a school district, being able to keep our campuses open and our students on campus, is entirely dependent on how this community complies with the rules and regulations that have been set forth in the orders by LA County Public Health. I'm so happy to be able to have all the students come back. We want to keep all the students back. So whether you agree or disagree, please support the requirements, the rules and regulations, and please comply, because it'll be better for all of us to get through this if we can all comply. Enjoy the little bit of end of summer that's left, and we'll see everyone back on Friday.
Okay, well, First of all, I want to thank one of the things in our efforts to keep everybody safe, we've canceled the opening day at what used to be the Saban Theater. And though I was looking forward to greeting everybody as the president of the school board at that event, it's going to be on Zoom. And so I am glad that that decision was made, and I thank you for making that decision. I think it was a very wise one. I'd also like to, as everybody has just said, I want to wish everybody good luck for the start of the 21-22 school year. To the students, to the teachers, and to the staff, have a marvelous year, and let's keep up our safety protocols. Let's have a wonderful year, and I look forward to seeing you now on Friday. I'm hoping that I can get to one of the openings, and also that our next meeting is August 24th, and I welcome you to join us at that time. So with that being said, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:57. Thank you very much.